everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Fearcast. This is the podcast dedicated to OCD, anxiety spectrum disorders, and getting your life back. My name is Kevin Foss. I'm your host. I'm a licensed clinician specializing in the treatment of OCD and anxiety disorders. And I just want to thank you all so much for joining me today. So for all of you who are new to the show, this is a question and answer based podcast. You can go over to fearcastpodcast.com. And if you have a question about OCD treatment or about anxiety disorders, which can include phobias, which can include social anxiety, generalized anxiety, all those sorts of things, you can send me a question and I will read it, consider it, and likely put it up on a future episode, just like this one. So thank you all again for joining me. As I've mentioned before, if you would like to send in, if you are so bold enough to send in an audio question, so you saying your question, so you reading your question, however you want to verbalize it, you can send me or you can record it on your computer, add it to a shared Google Drive and email it to me. You can email it to me or email that link to that audio at questions@fearcastpodcast.com. I'm looking out for more of those. We've had a couple of those on in the past, and I have really enjoyed them. I think people have enjoyed them as well. But if you would like to cut the line and have your question answered as soon as possible, add it there, and that would be the way to do it. But I'm going to be answering a question today from a woman named Norwegian Ruminator. That is the name that they gave me. So another thing to add, by the way, is that all the questions that I read, they're anonymous. They're anonymous to y'all. I do ask that you give me your real name and email address, just for a lot of legal reasons that I would need to have that just in case something crazy happens and I need to get in touch with you. However, whatever name that you would like to put up on this podcast, you can give me that. And this person has chosen Norwegian Ruminator. So I'm going to be getting into that question in just a few moments. But my just well wishes to everybody. Hope you are all doing well out there. Hope things are going well in whatever country or state or city or province you are in, and are managing to make a go of it in life and are being happy and healthy, and things are just moving forward with you. I know that we just submitted all of our proposals for the IOCDF conferences and also for our local IOCDF affiliate down here in OCD SoCal, and I'm really hoping that some of them get picked up. I'm really hoping that some of them get picked up, and we actually do the conference in this year. And I think it's going to be in Denver. One, I haven't been to Colorado since I was a child, and it's one of those things where the memories that you have from that time, you question whether or not you actually genuinely have those, or if they were given to you because you've looked at pictures of that trip, or you have talked to family about that trip and you go, oh, I guess I remember that. And your brain kind of fills in the blanks. I don't know. It could be a genuine memory. It could be one of those just conglomerations. But either way, I would love to go. And if I see you, high five me or fist bump me or whatever you feel comfortable with. Don't lick me. Don't. If that's your way of saying hi, don't. It's not for me. Thank you, and high five to you as well, or whatever that might be. Anyhow, but hopefully it all works out, and hopefully we can all meet in person. I'm really wanting that to happen for this summer, and then obviously for the other online conferences, hopefully some of those get accepted. As I mentioned in the previous episode, as well as a point of business before I start getting into Norwegian Ruminator's question. My private practice, Cal OCD, the California OCD and Anxiety Treatment Center, is hiring. So if you are a clinician who has at least a master's degree and is wanting to specialize in OCD treatment, and you would like to work with Cal OCD, shoot me an email with resume, cover letter, that sort of stuff over at, send it to me at kevin@calocd.com, and just type in application or something like that, and I would read it, and I would be delighted to read it, to chat with you about your interest and to see if we can make a go of it. But if you have questions about it, you can also just email them to me at kevin@calocd as well. So, all right. Without further ado, why don't we get into Norwegian Ruminator's question? She says, I am a heterosexual identifying female who is experiencing HOCD. I have two questions. When I'm around both sexes, mostly occurring with females, I have an uninvited and intense need to kiss them in order to check how it will make me feel. It can also happen with family members. This is causing me great distress as the images are quite intrusive and confusing. I've never acted on it, and I don't really want to, and I'm scared that I would like it if I do. It seems as though my brain won't let it go until I've tried it. I can tell for sure. How can you know the difference in suppressed desire and HOCD compulsion when it comes to acts such as kissing? And how can you dampen such compulsions when your day consists of face-to-face interaction with people? In conjunction of this, how do you deal with friendly interaction with close friends and individuals of the same sex that automatically sets off HOCD triggers? She ends with, thank you for sharing your knowledge about this topic and greetings from Scandinavia. So, Norwegian ruminator, thank you for sending this in. And it's super cool to me that people all over the world listen to this. I know it's I hope this didn't sound really arrogant now that I'm saying this, but I think it's really cool. It's one of those things where you put it out on the interwebs and people will find it. I also love that this type of information can reach anybody. It can reach, pretty much anybody, provided you have internet access. So I guess that does exclude a good number of people. However, it means a lot that this information can get out to people who need it, especially if in your country you don't have access to this type of treatment or this type of information, or it's not just readily available with your local therapist. I'm really happy that it can make it out to everybody. All right, enough about that. Okay, so there are a lot of questions, not a lot of questions. This is a fantastic question, and to me, it comes down to this question. Just is kind of the key to it is in the needing to know the difference between the suppressed desire and the HOCD. So first, I just want to point out OCD, as we all know. It's the doubting disease. So it's going to make you ask questions and question everything that you know and everything that you think you know. And you know, how much it's going to make you ask questions like, these are the ones that I had written down. I should also mention, I'm all over the place tonight. So I said tonight already. So this recording kind of brings me back to the good old days when I had to record after everybody fell asleep because I didn't record in my office. Tonight, I'm not recording in my office. I'm just at my house. It is 9:44 at night. All the kids are asleep. The missus is probably asleep as well. And so I'm in like the furthest room from the house to not wake everybody up. I've tried to drink a bunch of coffee in the day because I'm like, I got to record this. It is Sunday night. I want to get this out for Monday for y'all. So here's hoping it's going to sound all right. And I'm not too, all over the place as I am. But here we go. All right. So as I mentioned, OCD is the doubting disease. And it's going to make you question just everything that you know about yourself. And also specifically about this, it's never going to be satiated or satisfied with the answers to any of the questions you're going to give it. So questions like, well, how much until I know, right? What percentage of me is feeling these? What percentage of me feels this genuine feeling? What will it feel like if I like it? Will I like it? I might. And also, if it's suppressed, is it imperative that I bring it to the surface? So these are a lot of questions that people with HOCD, otherwise known as sexual orientation OCD or SOOCD. I'm using the term HOCD here because you, Norwegian Ruminator, referred to it as HOCD, but I know a lot of people are trying to move in the direction of sexual orientation OCD. For anybody out there, the vernacular is changing, but it's changing slowly. Anyways, so it will come down to this. The reality is you do not need to know, because also we may never know. You asked if what's the difference between a suppressed desire and if it's genuine HOCD or genuine HOCD desires, right? Or the HOCD compulsion, right? If it's suppressed, it's suppressed. Okay. So at the end of, and as I mentioned, at the end of the day, you don't need to discern the answer in order to move forward. Though the OCD wants you to think that it's actually vital in order to have continued relationships with people or just to continue living. It's ultimately not that important for you to know. The more you do ask, the more you're validating that question and showing yourself that that's an important question and a necessary question to ask. Now, I'll get into some things that you can do mindfulness-wise and also some exposure things that you can do to help reinforce this point. But at the end of the day, you're asking something that we can never know. If it is a suppressed feeling, if it's a suppressed desire, it's suppressed. It's either going to come out or it's not. But your rumination is trying to get to the bottom of this thing and whether or not it's suppressed. The problem is, the more that we go through the evaluation of where it's suppressed, how it's suppressed, oftentimes people with HOCD or sexual orientation OCD will then evaluate their feelings and say, all right, well, I was with this person and I felt this feeling. Okay. When else do I feel this feeling? Do I feel it with other men? Do I feel it with other women? Do I feel it around my partner? Do I feel it around people who I've been uninterested or sexually uninterested in? Have I felt it around people who do identify as gay? And therefore, if I feel that around them, maybe that's something that I should feel, right? The problem is, sometimes we just feel good and sometimes we feel bad. Now, I'm using that black and white to just make it simple for us. But we experience a whole lot of feelings and sensations and thoughts and emotions, and they exist on this very confusing, very broad gradient. And they happen sometimes at inconsistent and inconvenient times. So sometimes during tough times, we're going to feel good feelings. Sometimes during great things, we're going to feel unwanted feelings or, quote, bad feelings. So it's not just this cut and dry thing. I love my wife, and sometimes I've felt bad feelings or frustration or annoyances or kind of blandness around her and she with me, because we are dynamic human people that have a range of human emotion. But if I was to draw these broad conclusions based on these experiences, then I'd really throw myself into a loop. And I anticipate you and some other folks out there who might be listening to this have found themselves in that loop. So we're going to get a little further into that, but I also just want to bring some awareness in terms of discerning the differences between these two. Is that you emailed me, the OCD guy. You did not email Dan Savage. You didn't email another person or a specialist in suppressed emotions or feelings. You emailed me. So to a certain degree, you know that this is HOCD, and if you're listening to this show, and it sounds like you are, you also know how we discuss HOCD and SOOCD and OCD in general, is that it is going to be just rife with questions and doubts. And the real way to get through this isn't to get further into it with trying to get to the bottom of your questions, but it's instead to accept that uncertainty and to back off of it. So one thing that we can do, and one thing that I encourage you to do, is to use this awareness that you are treating this, or you have an inkling that this is probably OCD. And if that's the case, I want you to trust yourself in that and to take the risk that it is. Because I'm saying it is. All right. So another question you asked, or a specific question you asked, is how do you dampen such compulsions when your day consists of face-to-face interaction with people? So as I've kind of been alluding to, in short, you don't. So with our compulsions, you can't, with the intrusive thoughts, we can't eliminate them. Now, the compulsion component, and the compulsion, I'm wondering if you're meaning the checking aspect or the evaluation aspect of it. Now, there's an element that we can control and an element about that we can't control. We can't control that knee-jerk, that want to, the urge to, that feeling to jump into it. That's going to be there, and that's going to be a natural thing that you've reinforced over time. Now, your job isn't actually to eliminate the thought or the urge, but it's to eliminate your interaction with them. So if you're talking about the intrusive thought or the awareness of the thought, we need to be able to let that just come into our awareness and just pop in when it wants to, just kind of say hi to you. It's going to be annoying. Trust me. I know it's going to be annoying, but our job is to control the parts that we can control, which is our active participation in it. So you might have heard me talk before about the differences between active and passive thinking. So passive thinking is the sort of stuff that we have when we're just, we're driving to work, we're sitting on the bus, we're, hanging out with friends, and all of a sudden a thought pops into our head about just stuff. That person from high school, that person at work, what you're going to get your mom for her birthday. I don't know, just stuff pops in our head. We can recognize that thought is there. We can also, and first off, that popped in, and that's kind of a passive thought. And sometimes maybe you'll have a subsequent thought. Let's go with the birthday thing, right? If that's kind of been top of mind or you have that coming up, your brain, is working behind the scenes to try to figure this thing out. So it's going to be giving you random questions. It's kind of thinking, but you're not actively getting into it and kind of you intentionally seeking these things out. This passive thinking, we need to just allow be there and just kind of notice that it's there. And I'll talk about a way to do that in a moment. Active thinking is the stuff where you stop what you're doing, or you turn your attention toward that thought, and you actively, intentionally, willfully start working through the problem. Now, that's the stuff that we're doing in compulsions, is intentionally doing this stuff. The stuff that's passively happening, I don't care, and I don't want you to care. It's there. So what? We don't want to glorify it further by doing any intentional or any unhelpful intentional active thinking processes. So I hope that answers the question about how do you dampen the compulsions? Well, one is to notice what things that you are doing that are kind of keeping this process alive. What are the compulsions that you do? Do you check your feelings? Do you ask for reassurances? Do you kind of go back in time and think about previous experiences? Are you reading other people's reactions to see if they are doing something? Again, these are all active things that you are doing. So one is to pull back on the effort to do that. Now, this is going to sound scary when I say pull back on those compulsive actions or those compulsions, because you're doing those compulsions to try to keep you safe, seemingly to keep you safe from something. So to that point about whether or not or about how these compulsions are kind of keeping you safe, I want to go into one specific thing you mentioned. So how do you deal with the questions about whether or not you'd like it? So namely that kiss, right? Well, you feel that you have to address this question or to evaluate that question. So that thought popped up into your mind. I wonder if I'd like it. Now, that's a thought, but that thought then insinuates this whole story, and this is what is fueling this OCD cycle. And it tells you this story. If I have this thought about whether or not I like it, well, would I like it? If I like it, then this says this about me. Then this has to happen. Then this is true about me, which needs to change these other things in my life. It can be really scary when it just keeps going, right? So we don't like that answer. So you feel that you need to answer or evaluate or reconsider this question in order to keep you safe from something. And for you, it sounds like you're trying to keep yourself safe from this gay monster that's on the other side of this. Now, in using that term, it's what do you say? What are you keeping yourself from? And that's what I want you to think about. I'm going to call it this gay monster. It's this ambiguous thing out there, right? But well, what's on the other side of it? If you don't do the compulsion, if you don't evaluate it, if you don't avoid it, whatever the compulsion is, right? What's going to happen to you? What do you fear is going to happen? What are you going to have to experience or endure or suffer if you don't do this? That's the thing that you're afraid of. So you can think about what that is for a moment and then just say, well, all right, is my behavior actually keeping me safe from that? Right? Because you're saying, so in essence, addressing it, getting to a kind of a, no, that's not me. ultimately quells that question and assures you that that monster won't get you today. So as I mentioned before, you ultimately do not need to be answering this question. And you're going to have to both show yourself that this question is useless to you and you're trying to call its bluff. And one of the ways that we can do that is by taking a mindful approach. Now, this is going to be, this is part of acceptance and commitment therapy. This is an approach that some agree with, a lot of people agree with, some people don't agree with, and that's totally fine. But what we can start to do is just to start to notice the thoughts that we have and notice them as just thoughts that happen to be there. Now, you have associated this thought, with something that you need to take action on. But we're trying to take a different approach here and to kind of say this thought and treat this thought as something that isn't important to you. Now, again, it's scary because it feels really important to you right now. And it historically has felt really important to you, again, because if you don't do it, something bad's going to happen, or something's on the other end of it, or some a change or occurrence may happen, or you're going to feel uncertain or feel something forever, right? And maybe that's the threatening thing, right? So we're in taking this approach of devaluing the importance of the thoughts. You can think about, I want you to think about the differences between these two statements, all right? I might like kissing that person versus I'm having the thought that I might like kissing that person. What did you notice between the two? Well, one is a direct statement. I might like kissing that person. It's kind of an accusation. It's kind of a statement about you, right? It's kind of a question, right? It might even be, I'll like kissing that person. Whatever that thought is, right? But there's a difference. I might like kissing that person to I'm having the thought that I might like kissing that person. Now, the second one is certainly true. You are having the thought that I might like kissing that person. Similar to a moment ago, we were talking about the thought about what you're going to get your mom for her birthday, or what, thought about that person from high school. You are having that thought. Now, whether or not it's true, whether or not it's false, whether or not it's right or wrong, good or bad, safe or dangerous, it is a thought. And you and I get to choose which thoughts that we're going to engage in. And ultimately, most thoughts that you and I have are going to be useless. When we can take this approach of saying, I'm having the thought that I might like kissing that person, it now gives us an option instead of something that we need to be on guard against. Having the thought, okay, I am having the thought. Do I need to do anything about this right now? Do I want to do anything about this right now? That answer can certainly be, no, I don't. I don't want to do anything about this right now. Great. And then we don't. Then you don't have to. You can do something else, and that's a whole other topic of conversation. Now, by the way, you can take this approach of I'm having the thought about, or I'm having the feeling that, or I'm having the feeling of, right? You can even notice your thought. Notice your noticing of the thought. I'm noticing I'm having the thought that I might like it. Hey, I just noticed that I was noticing a thought about whether or not I'd like to kiss that person, right? And it can go on and on. It can be turtles all the way down. And it can be the same. You can take this approach with pretty much everything you do. And by the way, we still get to identify the thoughts that we have and then decide what it is that we're going to do. We can notice our stomach growling, and we can notice that it's noon or it's quote, dinner time, whatever that might be. And we can say, oh, I'm noticing I'm having this sensation of grumbling in my stomach, right? What do we normally do when we have that feeling? We go, oh, I'm hungry. We draw the conclusion, right? And we might then say, instead, oh, I'm noticing that feeling in my stomach. And we can say, okay, what am I going to do about this? Do I need to do anything about this right now? Now, we might be in a place to go grab something to eat. We might not be. But we notice that feeling and we could say, all right, well, now I need to decide what I'm going to do about this. Now, that's an example of something that you and I experience all the time anyways, but that's something that you can also start to practice with these thoughts, and will help you to kind of pull yourself away from that and be able to have a little bit more of a handle on what your response is with it. So your second question was, how do you deal with friendly interactions with close friends and individuals of the same sex when they automatically sets off HOCD triggers? Well, again, we want to be letting these triggers happen, right? If you're asking, how do I make sure that I don't get triggered? How do I deal with these people in a safe way so that I don't get triggered? Right? What you're asking is, if that's what you're asking, is you're asking, how do I do better compulsions so that I don't get triggered? Well, you're going to get triggered, and for a period of time, you are most certainly going to be triggered. But what I want you to do in showing yourself that you can interact with these people however you want, and if you're going to feel whatever it is your body's going to make you feel, great. I want you to show it's so unimportant. I want you to lean into it. I want you to make a game of it. Now, what this approach is doing is again, it's showing that this thought isn't something to be feared. It isn't something to be avoided. It isn't something to be rectified or fixed. It's something that can be played with, toyed with, elaborated on, joked about. Because oftentimes we're not afraid of the things that we joke about, right? You might have heard of gallows humor. What that does is it's a release valve for our anxiety. It takes away the sting of some of these things and shows ourselves that this thing isn't in this moment, in this context, something that needs to be treated with this fight or flight response. So I want you to lean into it. So one thing that you can do is you can in your head, to every person that you walk up to or interact with, you can say to yourself, you know what? I'm going to make out with this person later today. I'm going to make out with them hard. Or you can even say to yourself something like, man, you know what? If they just changed their hair, you know what? I'd be in the sack with them tonight. Now, if both of those sound silly, it's because, well, they are. But both of those examples are something that is leaning into this fear of, oh my gosh, what if I would like it? And it disregards the intensity of it, and it makes a game of it. I had heard years ago, and this just stuck in my head. It's something that threw me off when I had first heard it, and I probably heard it somewhere in like late junior high, early high school, or something like that. And this person, they were talking about another friend, and they were not in a relationship. They were never going to be in a relationship. It might have even been like a celebrity, and they were of the same sex. And they just went, yeah, you know what? I'd do them. And it was said so nonchalantly, and it was said as a lighthearted joke of acknowledging this person's attractiveness, but going so over the line of saying, yeah, this person's attractive, going all the way to implying that they would have sex with this person. Now, similarly, what we're doing is, in the leaning into it approach, we're going for it. We're stepping way over the line into a place that is goofy, is out there. Now, to make it more specific to you, is that you can take the specific thoughts that you're having, the worries that you have, the oh no's, the what ifs, write those down, and you can actually say those to yourselves as a fact. Yeah, I might do this. As you talk to this person. Now, not just once, not just twice, but with each and every single person, and say it a lot and elaborate on it. So there's a thing from improv theater where it's called yes and. It's the basis for all good improv theater. And it's yes. It's I'm agreeing with this statement or this concept or this premise, and then we're building on it. We're adding components to it that's going to take it to that next step. That's what we're doing with this. And we're saying, you know, I'll go with it. Fine, I'll go with it. But you're not cowering from it or trying to disprove it. We're going to play with it. So, Norwegian Ruminator, I know this is kind of an in and out, quick sort of response. Hopefully, it was quick, and I hope this gives you some things to do. But as a basic takeaway, I want you to remember that OCD is trying to wrap you up in a question about whether or not these thoughts have any meaning to you or have anything deep down that you need to resolve. Take the approach. Take the risk. Pull down that defense that you're doing in face of this potential danger, this potential monster. Take the risk and say, I'm not going to answer this question. I'm going to leave this open-ended, and I'm going to live with that uncertainty. And I'm going to let that uncertainty be there because I know that uncertainty feeling is going to go away because it always has and it always will. It'll come back, and then it'll go away, and then it'll come back. That whole thing. and redirect back to your friends, your interactions, the face-to-face things that you are doing with friends, colleagues, roommates, family members, whoever, and attempt to get engrossed with those and take the risk that maybe not answering this question is going to lead to some catastrophe for you, because it might, but it also might not. But we don't know that on this end of it. Take the risk to pull down those defenses and see what happens. See how long you can manage to go without answering the question. And be surprised that you were able to last that long, number one. And number two, to see then what happened. And then you'll be able to see whether or not your feared story, what was on the other end of that defense, right? What the monster, did it actually get you, or did nothing happen? So, Norwegian Ruminator, again, thank you so much for this question, and best of luck. All right, everybody, thank you so much for making it through that episode. All right, so now I need to get off to editing this briefly and posting it to the interwebs. Hopefully I can do it quickly because it is late for me. I've had a long day chasing around two children, but I don't know what y'all have been doing. But everybody, if hopefully this question was relevant to you as well, hopefully it was interesting, hopefully it was helpful. If you have any follow-up to it or would like to add something for Norwegian Ruminator, or would like to correct something that I potentially said, you can go over to fearcastpodcast.com and you can go to the submit a question link there, and you can let me know. I'm very interested to find out. Also, if you have a success story of your own that you would like to share, also go to the submit a question link, and there'll be a little pull down thing. You can put a success story there. I want to hear about them, and other people want to hear about them too, so you can share those there. That would be fantastic. So everybody, please remember that the Fearcast is not substitute for psychotherapy. If you need a little help in your treatment or getting started, you can go to fearcastpodcast.com. There's going to be the Find Help link. There's going to be some information there that might be of help to you. So, until next time, everybody, take a risk, challenge yourself, and don't take your brain too seriously. Bye.